Okay, so back to it. I've been licensed since 2007. I come from a family of realtors. Both of my parents are realtors as well. I'm going to move this off the screen here. There we go. Both my parents are realtors as well. I've got a running joke that the first house I sold was in 91 because I've got a great photo of me in front of my Remax at the time sign with my younger sister as my first buyer client in the car. So yeah, I've been doing this a long time. Started training in 2010, 2011, first at the KW office that's no longer open at Yonge and Finch, like on Church Street there. I taught video for real estate agents. And then after that, I started teaching open houses at KW Referred. And I think that was 2011. And was on the faculty there up until around 2017, and then just kind of got busy with other stuff and stopped participating as much. So I am grateful to be here with you guys and kind of filling in for Jen while she's gone. And I hope that we can make this a fantastic class. Our team business, like I said, my parents have been doing this. So they've been around since 1978. And our database is our business. That's where pretty much everything comes from. I'd say probably 90% of our business comes directly from our database. So fitting that I'm here to talk to you today about it. I want to start with what we're going to cover, and then I'll ask you kind of what you guys want to get out of this course. I want to make sure that it's tailored to you, especially because we don't have a large group today. I'm hoping that I can answer as many of your questions as possible. So first, we're going to talk about databases in general, what a database can really provide you, and I guess the necessity of why we have to have one as realtors. It's mandatory. People do coast by without them or just barely using them, but you're always going to be limited to how much you can remember and how good you are at staying on top of remembering to touch your database. We're going to teach you how to do it systematically so that it's just a no-brainer and that it's getting done, most importantly. The next we're going to discuss a little bit about is building the database, the necessity to feed it every day. So going back to, I guess it would be Ignite that you would have had with Jen before. Anybody obviously coming on in COVID times might have missed that. But the importance of adding contacts to your database every day. We're going to talk about communicating with that database in a systematic way, as well as, of course, servicing all the leads that come your way. So for you guys that are unmuted, let me know what you want out of this class today. What if we finish our class today and you were to say it was an amazing class, what would we have had to talk about? What would you have had to get out of this?
Implementing, sorry.
No, go on, Corey.
Well, I do have a small database, but it's dormant because of me. So I have gone through a few different programs and I still have the database, but I have stalled at getting it in command and making use of it. And of course, that's something that Jen would have promoted in my early days as well. So yep. I need to rekindle that and get that rolling. So it's working behind the scenes for me. It's like my assistant.
Yes, exactly. So
I'm Svetlana.
I'm gonna stay on Corey just for a second. Corey, is there one thing specific in regards to that you'd want us to cover today that we'd make sure that we were rekindling that database, or is it you think it's just going to come from the whole package that I've kind of outlaid?
At this stage, it's probably coming from the whole package, but it's largely me isolating time because I feel like I'm taxed, but it's really me taking the time because it's very detail oriented, and sometimes I find the print so small when I've extracted it from other sources that I find it challenging I get tired of looking at very small print and inputting small tiny information. But I think once I try to kind of get onto it, it becomes a bit of a rhythm. So that's just maybe me getting tired of sitting in front of the computer a lot. So once I get it done, it's me learning all of the systems as well. So it's a huge learning curve for me in a lot of ways.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's always the hurdle from going from just a database where it's just contacts and information to a database or a CRM that's actually working for you is of course all the steps that have to come in between to build it, right?
Yes.
And all the time we're spending in front of the computer these days. All right, Svetlana, you were about to say something there?
Yes, talking about the database, I don't think the huge database is great, but if you have kind of more alive database, not necessarily big, but constantly giving you referrals, constantly, people who knows and appreciate you. I mean, it's kind of not a garbage, not just for a number, for function,
Yeah.
functional live database. This is my goal.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how big it is for now.
The strength of the relationships in that database.
Yes.
Yes, very true. And so we will definitely be covering that today. We will talk about, kind of the sweet spot in regards to numbers, because, I know us, like with the PC coaching program, there's a lot of new businesses in here, or restarting businesses. And we don't have, 10,000 names in a database. We don't have 1,000 names in a database. We might not have 500 names in a database, but I'm here to tell you that you don't need that many names, and how we can go about feeding our database so we do get more names in it, but ultimately that we don't need big numbers to convert to business.
Exactly.
Perfect. Yeah, so we will definitely be talking about that. Okay. Anybody else?
Well, I'm interested about the automatic touches that you do. Maybe if we can explain a little bit in comment. I'm not sure if maybe just a brief idea how to do those touches and how they can be like effective and systematic.
I love it. I love it. Automatic, effective, and systematic. Touched on some great words that I like when talking about the strength of our database and making sure that we're staying in contact with it. So we will definitely be covering that. So I've got 3 things from you guys, and I've got a nice presentation prepared for us with all the stuff that I want to talk about. So I think let's just kind of jump right in. I'll make sure that we definitely cover those points. So the ultimate truth is the heart of your business is your database, and the heartbeat of your business is your regular contact with your database. So Svetlana definitely touched on this. It's about the regular contact and how, I guess, the strength of our relationships in that database that really come from, that really provide us all the business that we're looking for. Like there are a ton of people that are great at cold calling, door knocking, and they're just big, high turnover, high volume in terms of touches, and that's great. But if you want to just focus on relationships, and even if you have a database that's that big, if you can nurture that database and be in touch with it, the amount of business that it's going to provide for you, especially over the long run, is phenomenal, and it can't be downplayed. And that's really how we get longevity in this business. Everybody can have like a really strong year, a great year, make a lot of money, do well. But if you're not then systematically staying in touch with your clients and feeding in new clients, 2 years from now, you'll have a slow year or a really bad year, and then might be a rut of years. So it's all about making sure that we've got that consistency to give us the longevity. So of course, we want to make sure that in this database, it's not just names and numbers and emails and addresses. We're recording all of our contact information, of course. We're tracking our interactions. And of course, like we talked about, assigning them to specific marketing plans. Does that make sense in regards to making sure that we're building more of a CRM as opposed to just a database that might be like a phone book?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. In regards to our class today, are we usually pretty interactive? Do you guys want to unmute yourselves and talk and participate, ask questions? I find that we always get a little bit more out of it that way. And to be honest, I'm so used to doing these in classrooms versus over Zoom, and I feed off of your feedback as well.
Sure, that's good.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're a chatty bunch.
Perfect. I love to hear it. I love to hear it. And ultimately, this is something that we talk about is the real value in your database is the relationships that you have in there. And when you hear about doctors and lawyers selling their practice, they're selling their book of business with the relationships that they have in there, right? And that comes true when you're looking at, now obviously Jen and I have started doing more coaching with, we have the advanced coaching where there's agents that are a little bit more seasoned and already have a pretty good book of business, where when we evaluate their database systems, they aren't very strong either. And if they had stepped down of the business, all of their relationships would have gone with it because they didn't have that systematic touch in place where everything was being nurtured even if they weren't there. And if you don't have that, then the value of your business is really not what it is in regards to how much business and sales that you're doing. And especially down the road, if you guys get to the point where you want to build a team or even just be able to step back a little bit and have somebody else come in, it's really the value of your database that's going to make that happen. Of course, which is the best type of database tool to use? Well, it's the one that you'll actually use and use it systematically. So command is our big talking point here because that's the one thing that we all have access to. There are a bunch of other systems out there, and having been in this business now 13, 14 years, you know, we've been through a few of them. Obviously, Paul and C's been through even more, but we are now jumping into command as well and embracing it as best we can. There are still some hiccups along the way, but so far it's a pretty great system. So in regards to that, is everybody here on command?
Yes.
Yes.
Marginally, but I am, yes.
Okay. When you say marginally, are you still attached to some other system somewhere, or you're just dabbling in command?
No, I weaned off of Agent Locator because I had just come back to Keller, which is awesome. And it's just getting acquainted. I find just my learning curve is so huge. I'm doing too many things, but I have to do them all at once just to go forward. But I think I'll probably learn from this that I need to focus a lot more on my database and get that in place so that the other things will follow.
Absolutely. And so Corey, also is what I'm hearing is just, you've mentioned a few times now about being pulled in different directions. I think what's important is maybe getting back to doing like a 4-1-1 where you set out your tasks for your month, the week, and the year. And then that way you're kind of marking down what you're going to do this week and knock it out. That way it's not feeling like you've got 10 things pulling you in different directions. You've got your list of 10 things, but this week I'm just focusing on this one thing to knock it out.
No, I agree. Time management.
Time management. That's right. That is right. So yeah, the strength of our actual database system really only comes in how much we use it. It's great to have command there, but if you've got all your contacts in command and you aren't checking it daily or updating it daily or logging in and using your task manager so that you're having those phone calls and then updating your contacts with what you've learned about them or what's going on in their life, like that's really the real strength of it, because it then helps you build your relationships, because we can't remember everything all the time. But when you take a note about when your client's child's birthday or something that's going on, and then you mark yourself a follow-up activity so that you can call them 3 weeks from now when that event takes place and just say, hey, you know, I know it's so-and-so's dance recital today. I hope you have a great time, or shoot them a little text. Like all those things are so easy for us to do, and they have such a great impact on the other side. And so that only happens if we have a system in place to make sure that we're doing it all the time. So we're going to start with, we want to make sure that we're building our database, we're feeding it every day, we're constantly adding in new contacts. We're going to communicate with it in a systematic way. And then from that, we're going to service all the leads that come our way. And so it's one thing that once we get all this stuff going, now we need to be able to obviously service all the leads that come in. And in regards to that, because we're talking a lot about database systems today, the next step really is having the systems for in your business. Like, how do you handle a new lead when it comes in? What are your systems for when you take a new listing? What are your systems for when you have a new buyer? So on and so forth, so that throughout that process, it's really streamlined. So, building the database. Has everybody found that it's been a little bit challenging to add in new contacts to your database while COVID's been going on?
Oh, yes.
Does that sound fair? I think we've all been in that boat of, you know, what do we do now to make sure that we're adding new contacts in, because that's all ultimately the goal of our database and our business over time, is that we're constantly adding new contacts and new relationships into our database and into our lives. And with COVID, you know, I know all the door knockers have been having a hard time. Cold callers have, you know, taken a step back a little bit because we want to make sure that we're not being insensitive or anything like that. So has anybody, while we're here and we're brainstorming a little bit, has anybody been doing anything interesting in terms of adding new contacts to their database while COVID's been going on?
I don't want to jump in front of somebody, but what I started doing, and I did taper off from that, but what I started to do was just open the phone book and call or email businesses, just local businesses, largely because I don't know who's in this area, for one. I've never really paid that kind of attention to it. Mm-hmm. But I understood that just legally it was quite, it was we were able to reach out to businesses without infringing on anybody's like do not call list in that regard, so that when you tap into a business, just like they were saying, even in bold, see how they're doing and ask, you know, just in general how they're coping and if we can do anything for them. But other than that, if you establish any kind of relationship with them, preferably a good one, that they have employees as well, a network, so that if you're the one reaching out to them and helping, and I was starting to put them on the Kelly app on Insights, although I think there's a little bit of a hiccup with that, but nevertheless, you're giving back to the community before you're asking something from them, which I thought was
yeah, absolutely. I
giving
think that's been a great idea. Sorry, not to talk over you there. That's been a great idea, and I know that people have been doing giveaways through businesses and stuff like that. And I've got one coaching client that's added over 600 new contacts to her database just from those giveaways.
Yes,
and aligning with different businesses and stuff like that. So, you know, we call those allied resources, right? Getting in with them is a great way to add people to your database. Anybody else either, you know, have had a good idea that maybe they didn't follow through on, or anything that they did that was a great way to add new names to the database?
I've been trying to leverage applications like LinkedIn, so trying to network that way, and doing some campaigns on Comment as well, so trying to get some leads and numbers from there, as well as Facebook groups.
Yeah, absolutely. Like community groups on Facebook are fantastic sources to use. There's been more people. We've had the attention of more people now than ever that have been stuck on their phones or at their computer with nowhere else to really go or look for those last couple of months. So being active in those groups has been a great way to create new relationships.
I also think that sometimes if we don't talk about real estate, even on our Facebook, I'm mostly Facebook because I just can't keep up with all of the media. I'm not that savvy that way. But even if you're doing, say, maybe comic humor, like comical posts, because you're still drawing attention and having conversations with people or get reaction from people, I find that that's kind of a way to interact and build on just general rapport with people without talking about real estate. But I don't know if that's fair. It's sort of a passive way to develop a relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, even in our daily lives, sorry, is there a little feedback coming from me?
From me?
No, I thought it was from my end. But anyways, getting into any type of relationship, it doesn't have to start with real estate. It can transition there, no problem. I mean, if you think of all your networking events and, like, you know, parents with their kids, little league teams and stuff like that, like both of my parents built tremendous years of business, and even still to this day, based on my sister's ringette team and like my little league baseball team. Awesome. We had a listing in Aurora this year that was from when it wasn't T-ball, but it was like, it was kids baseball. I was probably under 10 years old. And we've helped them sell 3 houses now, and we're working with their kids. And one of them was just this year. So anywhere a relationship can start, it can lead to business down the road. So yeah, don't worry about it starting with real estate. It can end up there.
That's awesome.
Perfect. And so this is really, like we were just kind of touching on there, is where can we start these conversations? So obviously the more business focused one, we're talking about, you know, past clients, builders, business referrals, personal referrals. Then we've got our friends, business network. We've got our open house visitors, which hopefully we'll get back to eventually, and we can talk about that a little bit more down the road. But even random conversations with door knocking, lead gen, obviously, personal network, office calls, yard signs, client parties, you know, these are all great. But really, I would just even lean into like social networking is a fantastic way to add people to your database. Another source for us that's a big one is the curling club. Both Paul and Cease curl a lot, and it's a social time, and eventually social time always leads to real estate time. And so we probably get 3 deals from there a year almost, just from the curling club. So business is out there, and it's just about being active and involved. We know it's a contact sport. It's about being in front of people and having those conversations. So wherever you feel comfortable doing that, just make sure you continue to do it and do more of it. And then, of course, it all comes back to, now you've had that conversation, you've got to put those people in your database. So you got to get their phone numbers, names, Home addresses are great. And so a lot of this stuff can come naturally. It can come over time, or it can come very upfront. You can just say, hey, I'm in real estate. I'd love to keep in touch with you. I'd love to let you know what's going on in your neighborhood. Any of that stuff. I mean, that's a whole other course for a different time. But the point is, from those touches, from those relationships and conversations, that's how we start to build our database. And so in the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, we learn a lot about databases, of course, because they're great on numbers in that book and laying out kind of the roadmap for us. But the two things that we need to kind of break down first is to establish, you know, there's a whole wide world of people out there, and we've broken them down into two main groups. There's the people that we haven't met yet and the people that we have met. So in regards to our haven't mets, there's obviously the general public, you know, anybody and everybody is somebody that we don't know yet. And then there's a target group, kind of like if you were doing a geographic farm. So you're specifically targeting these people that you haven't met yet in the goal of doing business with them. Is there anybody here that's running a farm or anything like that? Like a geo farm, let's call it?
No, I have a regular farm.
Okay. I mean, this works as well with, you know, as things change, you know, social media, having a group like a Facebook group that you run is also a great way to target people. And then, you know, they aren't Mets and you're trying to convert that relationship into a Met relationship. So the ratio in terms of converting business, our contacts to business, obviously your haven't Mets, that ratio is much higher versus your Mets, whereas people that know you and like you, and as we go down just from like network all the way down to our core advocates, obviously your referral opportunities dramatically increase, and then just your chance of business overall dramatically increases. So I might be getting ahead of myself here, but I'll share the numbers with you anyway. Mets, we found that it's a 12-to-2 conversion ratio, and that's over like a 2 to 5 year period of you having your database up and running. You're systematically in touch with it. These aren't just names that you like email once a while, like they're actually relationships that you're having. And then it's a 50-to-1 conversion on your non-Mets or your haven't Mets. So, and again, that's still running like a 12 by 12. It's still systematically touching them, but that's your target group of haven't Mets. Does that make sense?
Mm.
Perfect. Okay, then moving on to our Mets, obviously there's our network group, like people that we know because we've either met them in person or on the phone. Our allied resources are people like our lawyers, our mortgage brokers, stuff like that. Our advocates are people that know us and have done business with us and will do business with us in the future, likely give us a referral every now and then as well. And then our core advocates are the ones that not only do business with us, but love to refer us business. They might be, like according to the MREA book, they focus more on these guys are in a great position to continually give you referrals. But for me, the way I look at them, they're just the people that I know that if a real estate conversation comes up, they're going to drop my name. They're going to tell their friend like, oh, you got to talk to my agent. He'll help you. So that's your core advocates. So ultimately, even in our Mets, we want to make sure that we've got all these guys, but people that we can move down the line from just a networking, maybe they weren't never in the allied resources, but they come down to our advocates. They work with us. They like us. They'll occasionally refer us to, hey, we've got a great, strong relationship. And these guys are always preaching for me. They're the guys on the street corner yelling out, you've got to use Dylan for real estate. And
Well,
I
that's
think
why I don't get anything, Dylan. It's all going to you.
my guys are out there in the streets.
Do you reward your allied resources?
Yeah, so
in-
personally, in regards to allied resources like our lawyers and stuff like that, we don't have a relationship and a business model where we expect a lot of referrals from our allied resources. We do get them, but it's not our main focus because our deal with when we give our pitch to our clients is we say that anybody that we are referring or introducing you to, we're doing so because they have the same business and customer mindset as we do. And we want to make sure they gain the same service across the board. So if I introduce you to somebody, it's not because they're giving me a kickback or a referral fee or anything like that. If I'm introducing it to you, these guys to you, it's because I know that they're going to give you the same service that I will when I'm not around and in that avenue of the sale. So that's one of the reasons why we haven't gone down that road, but that's just us. I applaud and I envy sometimes the agents that have like a great relationship with a specific mortgage broker where they know Anytime that mortgage broker sits down with somebody and that person doesn't have an agent, boom, you're getting that contact. So yeah, I would encourage you to take that approach. And then I say in regards to receiving referrals, no matter who gives you the referral, greatly reward them, make them feel special, especially when we talk about like the core advocates. You know, they get the nice dinners out, they get the keg, the octagon, wherever you want to take them. And they feel that love and being special from you throughout the year, whether it's a time that they're getting a referral or not. You just know that you take good care of them.
Does that include your colleagues as well, Dylan? Because they would get a referral fee, and I'm not, and a thank you. Not saying that you shouldn't. I'm just trying to get an idea of what the expectations are, because when you're starting out, you can spread yourself fairly thinly with where you're spreading the love.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there's times where you're not going to be able to spread the love like that, but I think we all know from our personal lives that there's a lot of ways to feel that love from somebody that doesn't come with a monetary gift or experience like that, right? It might be the personal note, the phone call. It might be posting something saying, hey, I just worked with this person and they were phenomenal. Like, this is my colleague and blah, blah, blah. We just worked together. Even if you got the referral from them, you say, we worked together with such and such buyer and we had a great experience, and, you know, like, reward them in other ways.
Yeah,
I guess is what I'm getting at. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, I'm good at that part. It's just that I wondered what the expectations were, because no, I really appreciate everybody that helps or does that sort of thing, because it's they don't have to, right? So it's very generous.
Yeah, absolutely. And I understand, like, obviously when you're starting out too, and there's knowledge that you don't have, and you still want to make sure that you're getting business done, that you do have to reach out and you do have to get help. And it is hard because people on the other end, you know, as much as they might even want to help, they might not have the time, right? Like, everybody's so busy. So when somebody does give you that time, hands down, like, reward them as much as you can, whether it's, you know, a shout out or I guess like a review or a testimonial, or sending them the note, anything like that. Just show your love. And I mean, everybody appreciates that. And then obviously, like, if it is a work colleague where you're giving them a referral feedback, you know, then that's great as well. Everybody likes to get paid.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. So obviously with your Mets, you know, getting that repeat business is key. Same with referrals, and they'll obviously give you that new business. And it's much easier to do with people that you've met versus the haven't mets. But in your haven't mets, now you guys did a course with Michelle Terzis a few weeks ago, I believe. This is a perfect example. Now with social media, you're going to have a lot of haven't mets that are going to see a lot of your advertising and your posts and how you conduct yourself. And if you do a very good job at that, you will get referrals from people that either haven't done a deal with you, maybe haven't met you, maybe don't know you really well, but they know your professionalism by the way you present yourself. Say, let's just use social media as an example. So if you're doing that, you can get these referrals right from these haven't mets. Has anybody gotten a referral from somebody before that they didn't really know, maybe wasn't necessarily like an advocate, but they got that referral?
No, that's the goal.
That's the goal. That's right. See, that's the goal. They will come. And you know what? Over time in this business, they will come. And it's all about just having your name out there and having a strong reputation about how you conduct and how you care for your clients. So.
Can I just have a "I'm with you" t-shirt? Yeah. I'm with that team.
Absolutely. So how large should your database be? We talked on this a little bit at the beginning in terms of, like, you know, we're new. We don't have 10,000 agents. We don't have we don't have 10,000 contacts or 1,000 contacts in our database. You know, what's the database size that I need? Well, just looking at this, and again, following Ignite, if you added 10 new contacts a day into your database, like you're taught to do in Ignite in terms of our lead gen, I know it's a little bit harder now, but still, we got to find ways to do this stuff, because you can either have that, there's reasons or results, right? There's no excuses in the middle, just kind of like our bold laws. You're either doing it or you're not, and that's really what it comes down to it. But in 200 working days, you'll have 2,000 people in your database. So in less than a year, you can get 2,000 people in there, no problem. It will take a lot of work, but it's doable. Now, let me just see if I've got it in this next slide. I don't. So again, going back to the numbers, according to the MREA book, at that conversion ratio, you only need 216 METs in your database to do 36 deals. This course that I'm teaching from here was, excuse me, I don't remember when it came out, but it was a long time ago. Before Ignite came, there was a course when I first started in 2007 that was similar called 443. We did 4 listings, 4 buyer deals in 3 months. And then they followed it up with this course where it was 36 deals in 12 months with 3 hours of lead gen every day. And so that's how we're arriving at the 36 deals. So with 216 METs, good relationships that you have, you can get 36 deals done. So if that's the goal, you just need 216 METs to make that happen. Now you got to still contact them systematically, make sure that you're building that relationship, but it's very doable. So we don't need to have these massive databases to make it happen. We come from a background of by referral only training, which is led by Joe Stumpf. And really, he had us narrow down our database at one point to our top 150, and then below that was our top 50 and top 25 of just really having our core people that get treated special no matter what. He said if you treated that top 150 just amazing year round, you would get enough business from it without having to have a database of 10,000 people that you're just sending mailers, flyers, and emails to.
I'm in.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
How does everybody feel about that, hearing the numbers? Like, is that surprising to think that you could get 36 deals from the 216 people?
No, I think that's amazing. I think you're right if you're nurturing it. But that's a new perspective of not going for the mass, but concentrating on the people that you can immediately impact or affect positively. So that's really good.
Absolutely. Even if you really narrow it down, think of like having that one relationship with somebody that you know you get maybe 2 or 3 referrals from every year because they're just like, just call it your best friend. You've got a great friend that does that for you. Imagine being able to replicate that and have enough strong relationships where you could just get 1 from every 5 people, right? It'd be phenomenal increase in terms of your business and your referrals. And it's doable. And who doesn't want to have those kind of relationships? It's effort and work, just like it is to have 10,000. But I'd rather have those close and strong relationships versus 10,000 people that I don't really know. And that's a personal thing, right? It's up to you and how you want to build it. But it's very doable to have smaller numbers and get great results from it.
Yeah, I agree.
So again, it's all about filtering it down. And we all know the 80-20 rule, I hope. That 20% of your, really of all your efforts will lead to 80% of your results. And so really 20% of your database is giving you 80% of your business. And this holds true. And there's times in our database where it's even smaller, right? 10% is giving us 90%. 80-20 rule does definitely hold true on averages across the board, but it's all about really just treating those people that you know are your advocates that are out there on those street corners, advertising your name for you, treating them really well and knowing that it is a relationship that you've nurtured and that they feel comfortable doing that. Because when it comes down to referrals, it's all about trust. When somebody does that, not only are they're putting their own reputation on the line when they recommend you. So it's very hard for people to give referrals a lot of the time, even if they like you and they're comfortable with doing business with you. They know that maybe their friend is really picky or whatever, but no matter what happens, your relationship with them, it comes back to their relationship then because they're putting their name on the line by referring you. So it's all about really just carrying yourself really well, making yourself referable, but also nurturing the relationship where they know that you working with one of their friends is like they'd be working with you, that they're getting the same level of service, if not better.
Wow.
Now, of course, we want to make sure that we're adding names to the database, and this is a fundamental starting point for our databases is getting those names in there. We talked about how it's a little bit more challenging during COVID. We're not doing our typical means of socializing, going out to parties, door knocking, cold calling, all that stuff. But if you focus in on some of these main sphere points all around you, family, friends, neighbors, home, school, really extracurricular activities are a great spot to to build those relationships, you know, being involved in the community. These are all things that we can do, like organizations, for example, where you're going to build really strong relationships, and you can add those names into your database, and eventually they will either do business with you or feel comfortable referring new business to you. Looking at that list, let's do a little brainstorming moment. Is there anywhere else where you would think you could meet some new people or add some names?
Everybody what moves.
Sorry, say that again?
Everybody what moves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gym, grocery stores,
Yes.
volunteers,
Yeah.
like food banks,
When
salespeople anywhere, like
yeah.
give me, I'll give you type of exchange for business.
Absolutely. There was a couple years where we had a couple different things we did. We had a shirt with a printed on the background that said, ask me about real estate. So anytime we were sitting in line at the grocery store, we'd strike up conversations. We had I still have them in here. I have, you know, all of our name tags, like a salesperson, again, ask me about real estate. And so when we'd wear that, you know, out in public, you'd look like a bit of a dork, but it always struck up a chord because people see a name tag and, you know, bound to call you by your name at that point. Same thing if when you're in a restaurant and you're talking to the waiter. So, I mean, there's lots of things that you can do to kind of strike up those conversations. And again, I understand with COVID that not all that stuff will be as easy to access, but it's coming back around, and it's just all about taking those principles and then expanding them to something new, being creative in terms of making sure that we're getting in front of people, talking with people, adding them to our database. So we just kind of already did this, just talking about who we already know and adding them into the list. Because really, if you take a look at your database, let's have a moment and just, is everybody that you know in your database right now? Does everybody feel like they're at that point?
What, that you know everybody in your database?
Not just that you know everybody, but everybody that you know is actually in your database.
Oh.
No.
No.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, no.
Same here. Same here. I Jen was giving me a hard time a couple of days ago because we have some like tertiary friends that we're still close with, but she was asking if they were getting our newsletter, and I was like, oh, you know, I don't think they're in the database. So there is definitely times where we're all guilty of it and all falling through the cracks. And I'm going to show you some of like our weekly, daily, and monthly activities in regards to our database that help us make sure that we're not missing any of those people, right? That we're checking in and making sure that that's a thing. But that's really what's important. So it's about identifying who you know, that you already know, making sure that they're in there. And then even in that, I would identify who I already think are my advocates and my core advocates. And I'd work on talking and building my relationship with them even further, especially in regards to our business, and just say, hey, you know, I'm looking for help building my business and meeting some new people. Who do you think I should be talking to? You know, where's a good place that you're talking to people? Who are some of your friends that I don't know yet that we would be totally cool with that I should be talking to? And those kind of conversations are great ways to meet new people. So feeding it every day goes back to Ignite. Your 10 new contacts, 10 people added into your database, writing your 10 notes. Prior to COVID, was everybody still doing these activities?
No.
Yeah.
Yes.
Who said yes?
Hermila.
Hi, Hermila. Great to see you.
Thank you.
Perfect. I love hearing that you were doing it. And were you writing your notes as well?
Yeah, I've been doing, well, I was doing my notes and I gave them away already. And actually, I add some people this morning on my, not my database, but I got a contact from Facebook. Mm-hmm. And I reached out to him, and he's a contractor. So we're going to start, you know, like if he gets a referral, he knows anybody, he's going to send it to me. And if I get somebody that needs some work done in their house before they list the home, I'm going to call him. So
yeah.
So that was good. And then actually they're going to buy a house in a year or something like that. So he said he will use me to buy it too. So
perfect.
So it turned out to be a good call.
Yeah, absolutely. So
I was happy about it.
You know, when those good calls happen is when you make calls, right?
Yeah.
You go a while without making calls or not doing your lead gen work. and you're starting to think, oh, you know, it doesn't happen, whatever. And then you start doing your calls again. Then all of a sudden everybody's asking you for stuff. You're getting people saying, yes, you know, I'm
Yes.
actually thinking about making a move, or yeah, I actually know somebody that needs some help with this, or it's getting ready to make a move. And all of a sudden you're getting busy, and it's all about just doing those activities. And so getting
Yep.
back to all of us building our database and making sure we're getting those numbers up if we don't have them there yet is
That's
feeding
right.
that database every day.
Yeah. Well, thank you, by the way, with all the help with the offer. It didn't go through because the offer was way over the asking price. So my
Yeah.
client just say no.
Yeah.
So I got to start looking for another condo. So
Yeah.
yeah, but it was good experience. I learned a lot, and I'm ready for the next offer.
I love to hear it. Yeah. Ready for the next one.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah. And honestly, the market is a little tight out there right now with like so little inventory in so many areas and locations that, you know, we are losing out in multiples, and we do have to do a few of these. It reminds me of, you know, how busy our market had been really for like the last 10 years, minus a little dip there in 2017.
So Dylan, I have a question.
Yep.
So why are they putting the prices really, really low now, and then selling for over 150,000?
Perfect. Well, I'm going to stay focused on the database stuff, but I will touch on that at the end of the course once we stop recording.
Okay.
And I'll have a great talk with you about that.
Thanks.
Very welcome. Okay. So expanding your database.
Something we were talking about just a bit before was how many people you asked something about your database.
Mhm.
What I was going to say is that like I have a bunch of people in my database, but I'm scared that some of those people forgot who I am. And then
Yes.
that's what really scares me from actually calling them, even though I should be calling them.
Yep.
Because most of these people for me are coming from my past job, like where I've dealt with them.
Mhm.
But that's about it. So that's really what scares me from doing most of the calls.
Yeah, and that's what we call in bold, like our drunk monkey, you know, our limiting belief that they don't want to hear from us and stuff like that, right? That prevents us from making those phone calls. And I can just tell you that make the calls. Like ultimately, there's a bunch of stuff we can talk about in between, but it really just comes down to making those phone calls, getting back into dialogue, and nurturing that relationship. We can't expect that we're going to get business from those calls right away. Like the odds of you calling one of those guys and then being like, yeah, I want to buy a house, let's go. You know, that's really low. But the goal there is to get back in a relationship with them, re-nurture it, rekindle it, and then have them in your database and obviously contact them systematically so that when the time comes that you're ready to go. Maybe you do find somebody that's ready now, and that'll be great. But that ultimately isn't the likeliest scenario on those phone calls. So if you take that part out of your mind and just focus on, hey, this is somebody that I know, that I've been in dialogue with before, and I'm just calling to rekindle that, maybe remind them that you're in real estate, or if it came from somewhere else and they don't even know, just say, hey, you know, I've been in real estate this last year or so. It's going great. And I'm just reaching out to let you know that if ever you need anything, if you want to know about what a house sold for, or you just want to talk about some advice, some planning, especially around COVID, I'd love to sit down with you and help you in any way that I can.
Awesome. Thanks.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'll rephrase it. Does that sound like something you could do?
No, it does for sure. It's just where it comes like a little tricky for me is because I'm still in business in both of my jobs. When I call them and say, hey, I'm in real estate now, they're like, oh, but I still need a phone. Can you still help me?
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah.
Well, I still want to get paid, so I guess I could help you on that aspect. Yeah, no, absolutely. And part of that is just, you know, as much as we talk about limiting beliefs in that, there are still sometimes underlying challenges. And with you being in both places, that will be something that you'll find you'll have to just navigate anyways. So I think it'll just be about deciding beforehand and just having like I'd sit down one day and just write out in my book very clearly, what are my thoughts on when those situations come up and how do I want to handle it? You know, what personal script am I going to write for myself for when they ask me about that, right? So that when it comes, you can kind of be ready to talk about it freely and comfortably, so it's very natural. And whether it's just reminding them, yeah, of course I can still help you with that. This is where my other focus is now, and if you need that, then let me know, right? Or however you want to word it. It's a deeper talk of actually spending the time to sort it out. But yeah, it'll be an approach that you have to decide and take. And then ultimately, when the time comes, is your goal to transition, you know, solely into real estate?
Yeah, for sure. Like when I can actually make enough to leave and, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's almost like catch-22, right? Because it's hard to make enough in real estate when you're only giving it, say, 10 or
Yeah,
20% of your time, right?
for
Because
sure.
it is its own business, and it's our own business with really nobody else but you that it relies on. So when it's only getting 10 or 20%, it can only give you so much, right?
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
Yeah. But I'd love to talk about that with you another time just to kind of dive a little bit deeper.
Sounds good.
Perfect. So in regards to expanding your Mets database, phone calls, visits with past clients, I can say that our personal drop-by visits to our clients' houses, even just saying hi, checking out what's going on in the neighborhood, sitting in for tea, those have been the most impactful touches that we make as a part of our 33 touch. And so obviously once that comes back around, or even doing it now and having safe distance, most of our guys, most of the people that we're talking with, other than people that we know are high risk, are very excited to see people again. We've been locked in our houses so long that seeing people face to face feels good. And those personal visits go a long way to strengthening those relationships. We built a lot of our business, before off of open houses and adding names to our open houses, dropping off our thank you notes to everybody that came through, adding them to our drip campaigns and stuff like that. So, getting that back up and running will be great. Social media now, this needs to get bumped way up the list. Like there are people running fantastic social media campaigns, not just advertising, but just posting on their personal pages that are attracting more and more people every day. And that definitely can't be discounted. Those are great people to add into your database and relationships to build off of. So I'm going to leave that for now because I would go back to Michelle's marketing class or a couple of the other teachers that we've had, rewatch those videos and make sure that you've got a strategy in place to use that to add names. Because again, that's where a lot of people are spending their time now, is on the phone and on the computer, on their social media. So it's a great way to get people's attention. Ultimately, we want to make sure that we're getting their name, home address, phone number, email address is great as well. But really, if you can get these top three, those are the things that really anchor at home the most, because people are much more likely to answer a phone call or a text message versus email address these days. And having their home address so that you can know what's going on in their neighborhood, you can contact them when stuff comes up in their neighborhood, is very powerful. And easy touches. Like ultimately, we've all got our excuses about, why we don't want to get on the phones and stuff like that, or we're nervous about how they might react. And having an easy touch just makes it so much better. And easy touches are saying, hey, a home just sold on your street, or new one just came up. I'm going to be watching it for you. I can't believe how beautiful the backyard is. Yada, yada, yada. There's all those great, easy conversations to have. And of course, this is just a little tip when you're having those conversations. Always go back to that Ford dialogue: family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. Very easy way to kind of guide a conversation with somebody that maybe you don't have a lot to talk about. Ask a lot of questions in regards to gathering information, especially with somebody new. Finding out their urgency is fantastic. Knowing about people's spouses and their children and birth dates, hobbies, all these are very important. I remember, I think it was the first time I read How to Win Friends and Influence People. They talked about that the night before he would have a meeting with somebody, he would just focus on what their hobbies were, so that when he went there the next day to meet them, he could talk intellectually about what it was that they were most interested in. So if you got a guy that's really interested in golf, let's say, and you can talk intellectually or just even kind of up to date on what's going on in the golf world, boom, they're going to love to talk to you. And as they talk and talk and talk, you've got a stronger relationship coming forward. When to enter the contacts. So when you guys are doing your lead gen, what's your process for adding contacts to your database? Does anybody have a system currently in place as they add contacts, or is it just like when something comes up you do it, or is it you wait till the end of the week and then you add in all the contacts from the week? Anybody can speak.
I add it right away because then I forget. So like the fastest I get to command and do it, the better. Yes,
I agree. And it's fantastic because you're the conversation that you just had with them is still fresh. And there's so many times where we're busy in our day where you can forget the conversations that you had, or that little detail, or, oh man, they told me their daughter's name and I just blanked on it. I can't remember their daughter's name, or I can't remember, they said it was a birthday recently, but what day was it? And then I can't track it down in my database so that every year going forward, I can give them that call on the day and say, hey, it's little Brooke's birthday. How amazing is that? I can't believe she's won already. And then feel the other person, glowing on the other side, right? So adding
I
them.
put it usually on a piece of paper. Sorry to interrupt you. And at the end of the day, when nobody bother me, I sit down and do some kind of mechanical work. You can fill it up when your brain basically not working as sharp as in the morning. So all mechanical job done by evening, not in the morning, not daytime.
Yeah. And so we're going to talk a little bit about our 3-hour time frame there for when we're doing our lead gen phone calls and follow-up. But part of it, the way we've been kind of trained to do it, is to do it at the end of all of that. So just like you said, having a piece of paper where you can mark that down, like we've got like a new lead sheet that we use, and we've just marked down what we talked about, any personal dates. We've got obviously their contact information. So at the end of it, I've got a little stack of my 10 papers that I can just sit down and boom, as I enter it into Command, or what we used to use as 8i, Top Producer, that we just fill everything out at the time. Because to be clear, when I say doing it right away, I definitely don't mean like making your one phone call and then logging into Command to do it, and then making your next call and then logging into Command to do it, because you're just going to eat up all your lead gen time. It's important to do your lead gen time as you've time blocked it. And just at the end of the lead gen time, the best way to do it is to then add everything in.
Dylan,
Yep.
On the Kelly app, I haven't done it. I think I tried to do it and I did something wrong. But on the Kelly app, like if you were doing something on the fly, can you just add a contact? This is the way I understand how well it's connected, that you could add it in Kelly and it shows up in Command. Does that work?
That's a good question. I don't know specifically, because I have tried to do stuff with Kelly and it hasn't had all the functionality that I was looking for in regards to then syncing with Command. So I don't have that answer off the top of my head, but I will write it down and get you that answer. Because ultimately when I make my calls anyway, I'm at my computer and at my desk and I'm using the web platform. So it's all right there as opposed to doing it on the phone.
Right. Okay. Because I find if I'm out and about and I write something down on a piece of paper, that's where I end up losing little pieces of paper. And I thought maybe if I had a better system, then it would just go right in and be right there on the spot.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally get what you're getting at there. So I mean, there's a couple of different things to do, ways around that. You could create a new system for yourself where maybe instead of putting into Kelly and making sure that it's in that system, but not having it on paper, you could open like a notepad, like on your phone, that just has the name, the contact information, what you talked about. And then when you get back to the desk, you just open up that notepad and fill it out. So there's definitely ways around it.
Yeah.
It's just about making sure that you have a system that you follow.
Right.
Because some people will write it down on that piece of paper and they'll just know, hey, I got to bring those pieces of paper in from the car at the end of the day and fill them out. Other people, like you said, you misplace that piece of paper, you'll have to put it on something digital like your phone. Okay, I keep on moving through.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Very welcome. All right, so in terms of adding information into your database, there's obviously the basics, right? Like where it came from. Tracking your sources is very important because you want to know where you're being most effective and where your time on task is getting most rewarded. So, is it your ads? Is it referrals, open houses, conversations from friends, past client calls? What's the source that's really kind of, working the best for you? If it's a referral, obviously marking all that stuff down. Then, of course, name, address, phone number. This is outdated, but fax and email. Contact history in your conversations. This is where you still really start to get in the deeper aspect of a CRM versus just a regular database or a phone book, is noting down the conversations that you've had and what's important to them, so that when you follow up with them, that's a part of your relationship now, is you are checking in on whatever it was that you talked about. And then, of course, grouping them appropriately in your database, whether it's sellers, buyers, mets, haven't mets, business in 90 days, however you want to categorize them, making sure that you've got that. And then from there, it's adding in all of this other stuff, anniversary dates, children's names, children's birthdays. Do they own? Do they rent? What are the property features that they like? The house style, number of bathrooms, number of bedrooms, all that stuff are what they're looking for down the road. When's their mortgage due? What's their renewal date? So that you can call them and say, hey, do you want to talk to a mortgage broker in terms of your refinance? The more information that you have, the more you can help them. And again, of course, the more stronger your relationship is. Does that make sense?
does. That's good.
Awesome. Awesome. So 3 hours a day, obviously we're prioritizing our lead generation activities because this is how we're going to make sure that we add in our 10 numbers to the, or 10 names to the database, right? And then of course, at the end of those 3 hours is when you update it. Some of the things, the systems in our database that we use to make sure that we are contacting and staying in touch with people systematically are things like our 8x8s, our 12 by 12, and our 33 touch. So does everybody know what these are?
Yes.
Or I'll start with, has everybody heard of these before?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So 8x8 is obviously, or it's not obviously, but is the one we put people on when we first meet them. So we want to build that relationship really strong. So if they get one touch a week for 8 weeks straight, and then what they've done in terms of the numbers is they feel like that's what it takes to ingrain that you guys are now, you know, a connected relationship, right? And so from there, then hopefully you put them on your 33 touch. Maybe you've done some business with them. And if not, then, and you still haven't made contact, you put them on like a 12 direct. And your 12 direct is also something that you would do in regards to targeting your haven't mets. So your geographical farm or your allied resources, they can go on a 12 direct. I would preface with that if you are doing geographical farming, I don't think 12 direct is sufficient, especially depending on what neighborhood you're breaking into. But that's a whole other course for farming in regards to that and identifying like what other competition you have in the neighborhood. But starting with an 8x8 and then getting your 33 touch up and running are kind of the first steps. 33 is the number that they studied in the MEREA that they said that that's the sufficient number. There are years where we don't always hit our 33 touches, and then there are times where we surpass our 33 touches because of extra phone calls or activities that we put on. And especially now with social media, there are new campaigns that you can run in that in regards to making sure that you're still top of mind. The whole goal here is just maintaining mind share. So when the time comes and maybe opportunity arises where they're ready to make a move, that you're the one that they think of. Because I think any agent that's been in this industry long enough will know that they've lost out on a deal because they weren't in touch with one of their past clients frequently enough. So maybe you had a great relationship, but then somebody knocked on their door the day they were just thinking about, you know, getting ready to sell the house. And for whatever reason, it just happened that way. And they listed with that agent as opposed to calling you. It happens. It always sucks when it happens, but you only really ever have yourself to blame for not staying in touch. We've had that happen and we've looked back and we're like, oh man, they slipped through the cracks and we haven't spoken to them in like a year, you know, and if it's not one of your core stronger relationships, they're susceptible to being, I guess, scooped up by another agent. So it's all about maintaining that mind share, especially with past clients and your sphere. So your 12 direct is obviously 12 direct marketing plan once per month. We know that just emails or just newsletters and stuff like that isn't as effective as adding in phone calls. You really want to make sure that you're sprinkling those phone calls in there. You know, quarterly phone calls are great, as especially a part of a 33 touch. The 8x8 as well, you want some phone calls in there. You don't want to just have emails going out. You want to make sure that you're dropping off something of value. And I'll cover that a little bit more as we keep going through. And our 33 touch program obviously maintains our relationship over the 1 year cycle. And there's lots of touches that we can add in there that I will talk about as well. Overkill is key. I mean, that's the whole thing about making sure that we are staying top of mind. There are times where I will say that overkill is too much. I've unsubscribed from people that email me too constantly. And so, you know, take it with a grain of salt. I think the important thing to acknowledge there is making sure that the content that you're sending is valuable and personal. Those are the two biggest factors I would say that make sure that you're including when you're sending these to people, because if you're emailing your new listings to your database all the time, let's say, and your database has no intention of moving, but they're getting spammed with these, you know, new listings in areas that they don't live in, it's not really anything of value. It's just kind of taking up their inbox, and it's not going to be something that they appreciate. And you'll more than likely have a couple unsubscribes just from something like that. Does that make sense?
Yep, it does. I find that too. that actually I've lost some people when I was with Agent Locator.
Mhm.
Just before I came back to Keller, I found that they had a bit of a system, and I'd send them out, and some people would just drop off. They either didn't like the content, or they weren't actively, like I'd pick them up as a lead follow up, and they weren't they weren't ready. This was before COVID too. They weren't ready to take any action. They were just looking on the website. So I guess it depends. You have to drill down whether or not they're in fact that eager to do anything at this point. So maybe some of the content that I was sending in a sort of an email blast wasn't specific to their needs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree 100%. And I think the other thing that we've started to acknowledge now is there are easier ways other than email to have these touches with people while you're still staying top of mind. Like, more people are now than obviously ever before comfortable with text messages, and we have campaigns built on text messages as well, where sending a simple text message that they can look at on their phone is less invasive to them than a email campaign, especially if it's something that they're not interested in. And so that's a new avenue that we can take to make sure that we're not overwhelming or flooding people with stuff that they don't want. The other aspect of that is when you have those conversations at the beginning with somebody, finding out their motivation early on is very important, and matching their level. You know, asking them on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being you want to buy something today, 1 being you're just browsing, where do you find that you are? Because I want to make sure that we are aligned. Because if you're ready to buy something today and I don't call you for a week, you're going to be upset. Vice versa, if you're just browsing and I call you every day with new listings, you're going to be upset. So let's make sure we find that middle ground so that I'm communicating with you in the way that you want to be communicated. And that helps to make sure that you're not overwhelming somebody, right?
Mm-hmm.
So really the benefits of having a systemized database is, of course, are consistency, it's predefined, it's repeatable, and it's automatic. And the important, obviously, all these benefits are very clear because we know the downside of not having this is that people get missed. You know, if somebody isn't in your database or on a system, you know, when was the last time that you talked to everybody? We do database checks every now and then where we go through the full list of all the names and say, okay, when was the last time we talked to this person? When was the last time we talked to this person? What was the last conversation we had? So that we know that if we have missed people, because sometimes even when you're making your calls and we've got our long call list, if I didn't get a hold of somebody or just left them a voicemail and we didn't have that talk and then, you know, went on to the next sheet, you know, that person's been missed now for maybe 2 times. So it's been, you know, 8 months, 9 months since we spoke, and it's time for us to re-engage. So it's all about just making sure that you are staying in contact and engaged with the people in your database. And that's why having a small number is okay. Because if you're having strong relationships in there because you're contacting all these people regularly, then it's very doable. Sometimes contacting, you know, a 5,000 person database over and over again is a challenge. The majority of those people with big numbers like that, a lot of those people are have-not-mets. So it's not like you are on that same kind of system. I think everybody would probably agree with that, right? That you'd acknowledge that if somebody's got that many names in their database, it's likely just people that they're mailing to.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, jumping back into our 8x8, this is our entry point. It's applied immediately. This is where we're kind of strengthening and stabilizing that relationship, cementing it that we are, that they know who we are. And it is a combination of personal visits, phone calls, items of value. So dropping off, you know, a market report, anything like that. And of course, the handwritten note. Like we talk about doing our handwritten notes with our 10 contacts that we add into the new database.
Right now, though, are we refraining from the handwritten? I mean, I'd like to. I had some nice cards, but because of COVID, I've sort of stepped back from that sort of thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, I can't speak 100% for what everybody's doing or what necessarily is the right process. I have had this discussion, you know, in the last couple of months where we did our end result. The conversation was to hold off for now. I think more people are getting more comfortable again, and obviously everybody's still receiving mail. So at this point, I feel like a handwritten note could be okay, but I would use it on a case-by-case basis. I would base it on who you had that discussion with and what you think their comfortability is with everything that's going on. Like I've shown some people houses where they're like coming up and ready to shake my hand. I'm like, no, like I'm not comfortable doing that yet. And then I've had other people where like really standoffish. They've already got their own mask on and all that stuff. So everybody's in a different place. I would gauge it on a case-by-case basis.
Okay.
I mean, because you've already had the conversation with them if you're at the point to drop off the handwritten note, right?
Mm-hmm.
So at least you'll have a gauge. Again, here's some suggested items of value in terms of dropping things off. And a little bit, some of these are a little bit more old school, but they're all still great. You know, the how to buy a house, the moving tips, just tips in general, renting versus owning, and tailor them to who you think it is that that you're dealing with.
Where do you find the 10 commandments for the real estate loan? Where do you find that?
All of this stuff would be on kw.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And I've got some stuff that I can show you guys at the end of the course in terms of finding some other of this content, right, that you can use. Customizing it. So this is like, who do we want to target with our, so I'm just going to open up something here. Who do we want to target in regards to our 8x8s? Because the best thing you can have is you don't want one 8x8 for everybody to go on because it's going to be ineffective. Like you need one for buyers, you need one for sellers, you'd obviously need one for a FSBO, your farm, You'd need one for first-time home buyers, for people that are move-ups or move-downs, you know, downsizing. Relocations is a great one. So the more you have, the better. I understand that it is a lot of work. So you could narrow it down to just buyers and sellers and try to make it as, I guess, just useful and as of value as you can so that they're seeing it and they're excited to read your emails or whatever it is that you're sending them, as opposed to being like, why am I getting spammed with stuff that has, you know, nothing to do with me? I've got a campaign option here for you. Let me just open this up. So here's some campaigns that we have actively going or have had actively going in the past. You know, a purchase anniversary, post-closing referral campaign. So once their home was closed, trying to get that referral. Our buyers, just a general 8x8 follow-up campaign. Our 12 direct, which is just basically stuff about, you know, your home, like tips around the house. And, you know, 8x8 for some sellers. So having different campaigns to apply to your different contacts is going to be very important. Example of an 8x8. So because we're not in a classroom, I'm having a hard time gauging where you guys are at. Is everybody enjoying all of this so far? Is this kind of productive?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
It's like first time again.
Perfect. That's what I like to hear. Yeah, I'm just going back to our initial questions. Corey, we talked about kind of the whole package that we're reviewing. Spilani, we wanted to talk about automatic touches and of course our effective system, and then talking a little bit about command. So I'm still on track to make sure we keep doing all this. So obviously our automatic touches are making sure that we build these, exactly what I'm talking about here, in our new smart plans in command.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So again, for example, starting with a handwritten note and a business card for your first touch, contacting them by phone to then follow up, dropping off the item of value, another phone call, touching base, seeing if there's anything that you can do, another item of value. And again, item of values, they don't need to be dropped off physically. They could be emailed. That's just fine. And again, just making sure that you're constantly kind of in contact with them, that once a week. And the other great thing about being organized in our databases is it always reminds you what you're supposed to be doing every day. When there's days when you're like overwhelmed with being like, okay, I know I got to be busy today, but I don't know what task I'm going to do. You know, when you're focused with that lead generation is going to give you the next people to talk to. And in the meantime, you're going to be trying to add those new people. And then as you put them into your database on these systems, boom, once a day, every week, I'm going to have to do something with those people that I added in. So I know that I'm going to be busy because I'm going to be nurturing all those people that I just added in from my lead generation last week while I continue to lead gen.
Yeah, that's good.
Of course, the 33 is our year-round systematic marketing and prospecting technique. And so when looking at this, I do believe that I have another slide, or at least a photo that I'll share with you later in terms of examples of what you can do with your 33 touch. So most people have, you can knock a big chunk out of the way just by a monthly newsletter. We do a hard copy newsletter that is very personalized, that is all us. If I was going to share it with you, you would look at it and be like, people actually like this. It makes no sense. We're so wordy. It's not an attractive piece, but we've been doing it so long and it's so authentic to us and our team that everybody loves it. Every time we sit down with somebody for a listing presentation, whether we haven't talked to them in a long time or know them well or whatever, but they're getting our newsletter, they always comment on our newsletter. They're like, half the time they've got a little stack of our newsletters there. I'm not even exaggerating on this. People seem to love it. So it's all about doing something personal, right? And like, there's nothing unauthentic about it. Cease writes a lot of it herself, and it's always from the heart. There's actually very little real estate in it. So if you can do something like that, or just, again, finding ways to be personal as opposed to just, your top 5 home tips, it will be much more effective.
Okay, when you say that, sorry, you're in a bit of a rhythm here, but when you say she hardly talks about real estate, I think that's where you're maybe going to get somebody's attention, because you're still talking to them in a way, but not necessarily about real estate 24/7. So what kind of conversation is she talking about? Or I'm sorry, I'm not sure it's a male or female.
Oh yeah, so it's my mother, Cecilia.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Is she talking about community events, or how to bake a certain, like a recipe? I'm not really sure because I don't know what.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me show you an example of what our May one looked like. Oops, wrong button.
Oh wow.
So this was Where Were You When, talking about JFK.
Oh yeah.
Making sure that you're stretching, personal development.
Oh, that's great.
We've got our little section here on Market Watch. How will COVID affect urban planning? And see, so like I said, again, this is a personal thing for me. Whenever I look at it, I'm like, oh man, it's so wordy. There's like a lot of text on the page, but it's a lot for people to read, and everybody responds. Like I said, they respond well to it because it's personal.
It's a value. They're valuable pieces of, but these are just this is hard copy you're talking about.
Yeah, we do this all hard copy.
Wow. So there's no live links and that way that wouldn't work. Okay.
No, like we do write in, myrealtyteam.ca/marketwatch if you want to go to our website to see the other stuff. Like for example,
Right.
we do have sometimes addresses in there, but not always. Again, most of our stuff is just about here's the hard copy, and we've changed the color on it over time. Like it's been green, it's been purple. Purple was the best, I'd say, result that we got. It was, when that purple newsletter shows up in the mail, you know that it's us.
It's bold.
It's bold. That's right. Yeah. That's probably when we switched to it. Yeah. So again, it's all about personalizing. And again, anybody like daunted by trying to get 33 touches, it's actually quite easy. You can take away almost half of it right there. And then you add in birthdays, holidays, items of value, like maybe home show tickets, one-of-a-kind show tickets. We do one of our best, I guess, results is hazardous waste pickup in the springtime. So all the stuff that you can't just put in the garbage, like all your paint cans, electronics, stuff like that, or items that are too big. We do a mail out to our database saying, let us know if you're interested in this and we'll come by. We got a trailer that we come by, pick everything up at, but we come right to their house, and they have to reach out to us to let us know that they want to do that. And again, it's something that's always had a very positive result because it's valuable. It's coming from contribution and getting that stuff out of the way. Like, who doesn't have excess paint cans in their home that they need to get rid of? I've got 12 of them right now that I need. That's
a huge service.
Yeah,
that's huge. Good for you.
Again, stuff like that is a great touch to make. Oh, here we go. I was ahead of myself. So here's examples. You can have 14 mailers, letters, card, emails, or drop-offs, thank you or thinking of you cards, your quarterly phone calls, personal cards, which would be their birthdays, maybe anniversaries, Father's Days, Mother's Days, home anniversary, your holidays, and then doing face-to-face visits. And you can add them up pretty quick. Again, the important things here, like I've touched on, obviously, is the consistency, the personal touch, and long-term. When we look at those numbers, that 216 people to get your 36 deals annually from, that comes of having, you know, a system in place for 2 to 5 years where they're constantly getting this 33 touch. They're getting those personal touches from you and those phone calls so that that relationship is strong. You can't just do it once and hope that it works out. It is a long-term game, but this is our career and our businesses, that it is a long-term process, right? So it's all about sticking with that, being consistent. And like I said, and like we do, the personal touch is really what gives us that impact, to not just be kind of thrown in the recycling with everything else. Because I'll be the first one to admit sometimes our marketing stuff isn't as flashy and as nice as some of the other, like I'd say, like bigger teams than us, but our stuff is personal. And again, that's where our relationships come from. Obviously, we talked about this already, the 12 direct, you know, just having those 12 pieces that are being mailed to your Have-It Mets. And so this could be stuff that's going to a farm or going to your allied resources. They could be emails, they could be hard copy stuff. And I would, of course, I would add in phone calls and all that as well. And I'm pretty sure that the actual system says to do the same. Hosting events are great. Maintaining a physical presence. So when we go back to farming, you can't just mail to a geographical farm the whole time and hope that it works out. You have to be physically present. You have to be door knocking in the community, making your phone calls, maybe hosting community events, stuff like that. That's how you really get, I guess, traction from those type of farms. And it's not something we do. We don't, our farm is our database, not a geographical farm. So everybody's different. This is an old one. I haven't taught this class for a while. I actually don't know if this video is still up there, but I'm sure that that it is. KW Connect has a wealth of videos that are all still there. So if you wanted to watch Gary, but I would watch something new from Gary. All that stuff is fantastic. So how do we actually do it, right? What do I actually have to do to make this happen? Let's take a look at some of our activities here and just note down that this is what my new plan is, right? So our daily duties, talking about adding our 10 new contacts every day, managing those new leads, obviously still maintaining all your appointments, making your calls, writing your notes. Obviously throughout the day, you're going to send and receive emails, schedule your follow-up activities, manage listings, closings, and complete the tasks. So through command, all of this stuff is so easy now. You log in, you have that open, it's web-based, so you can do it anywhere. You can do it at the bullpen, you can do it at home, you can do it at your home office, on your iPad, whatever. And add those activities. So you'll log in and you'll have your call list for the day, like whether you get that from somewhere else or whether you're getting it from command, for example. Like I've got my guys now on the quarterly call list in command. So I've got that, here's my 20 for today that I need to call. And so right there, those names are already there. I'll write my notes out physically because it's just easier. I'll have my earbuds in my phone while I make my calls, write my notes, and then boom, update it once I'm done, like we said. And then from that, if I've got any follow-up calls, I will add my notes and add my activities directly there so that I know that I need to follow up with that person in X amount of days, whether it's for business or whether it was for a relationship building moment. Like if I'm following up about, a kid's graduation or dance recital or something like that, or if it's because they like, hey, message me when this house sells. And then I would, schedule that in. Do those sound like kind of daily activities that we're all aware of that we just need to make sure that we're doing regularly?
Oh yeah, it's just getting better organized from my perspective with the things that I have to do with animals, that sort of thing. It's just an excuse.
An excuse, that's right. Yep, but I mean, just keeping it simple, right? And it starts with making those phone calls. And so starting back at the beginning of all of this, when we talk about the importance of a database and having those contacts in there, is with you guys being newer and everything kind of being shut down during COVID times and not having a wealth of names to call and keep in touch with, it's much more challenging, right? So going forward in the future, if anything like this ever happens again, or if anytime it's challenging, like COVID just amplified the importance of having a database of relationships, of people that you can call in and check in on. Like we weren't doing any business calls, in March and April. They were all warm calls, checking in to see how people are doing. Now June started, we've had people reaching out and saying, hey, we're curious about this home, in this neighborhood. Can you send us the information? But it's because we were top of mind with our warm calls you know, and checking in, genuinely seeing how people are doing, because it was a little scary there for a minute. But, you know, staying top of mind like that is leading to new business today. It wasn't business that we got back in March and April. It's now business. And it might not be till fall business, but again, it's just that on task over time. So weekly duties, sending letters, postcards, mailers, listing service reports, and make calls to your sellers. So obviously just making sure that you're staying on top of the regular business that you have to do in that sense, like with your current guys, but sending your letters, postcards, and mailers, this is going to happen as you're on your touch system, right? There are going to be weeks where, hey, this is where I got to send out that postcard, or this is where I'm sending out my newsletter, whatever it is during that time, so that your database, so that the system is still working the way it's supposed to. Not everything can be automated. Half of the automation just comes with the reminder that you need to do it, or having the 33 touch written down so that you know that at this week you're doing this, and it's scheduled in an electronic program that reminds you that you've got to do it, because we don't want everything to just be an email that automatically goes out, because we know that it's not effective. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Monthly duties, same thing, maintaining our contact records, and of course, like for us, doing our monthly newsletter. And then annually, your seasonal mailers, so stuff like this, like around the holidays, we send out, you know, little client gifts for all the guys that we did business with. We do our calendars, we do our little notepads, you know, all that kind of stuff. Review and update contact records. Man, the amount of times that I've let this one slip and not done an annual review, and then been like, oh man, I've got my friend Jack's information updated in my phone, but I didn't update it in 8i. So now the newsletter's been going to the wrong spot for the last 60 days. Oh, I need to change that, right? So making sure that you stay up to date and review your database is very important, so that you can stay on top of that. And when you're doing your phone calls and checking in with people, you know, verifying some of that stuff, like, hey, is this, you've got them on the phone, but is this still the email address that you use? You know, is your work email address still correct? We've had work email addresses bounce where we know, okay, they're at a new job. What's your personal email, so that we can send you stuff there? Yes, getting started. You know, big myth. I don't have enough leads to bother with a contact management system. You know, the system is there to help us. It's really what then kind of builds our growth going forward. And if you wait to the point where you're already too big, you've got too much going on, trying to catch up is a pain in the butt. I was listening a little bit to Mike's course, I think it was last week, talking about command, and just having to add in, you know, names manually. A couple people were doing, right? Imagine not having a database in place, you know, with the transitions, one thing, but having to add in everybody from scratch, like from a phone or something like that, it just, you know, it's a nightmare. So starting fresh, like, you guys are in the best position ever to make this happen, because you can do it kind of slowly and with your small numbers to begin with. So you can be very thorough in terms of adding those in. And in regards to transitioning to command, because I heard some people had problems with that. If anybody still hasn't transitioned everything over, make sure that you are reaching out to the Scott Leroy team. Like, he had our stuff. I wanted to do it manually because I was a control freak. Like, I wanted to put it all in the CSV folder, and it was such a pain in the butt for me to actually do that. I finally reached out to him, and he had it done in an afternoon. So, you know, that's a service that's there. It works. I definitely encourage you to reach out.
That would be helpful.
Yeah, just do it. If anybody hasn't done it yet, just reach out to them. They're fantastic. Everybody that I've been in coaching with and talking to that I've recommended to do that, they've all shared fantastic stories where it got done in less than a day, and everything was just ready there for them to go. You know, benefits of command, obviously talking about our action plans, marketing materials, prompts. Some of the marketing materials aren't there yet. Like, there is designs and there is other stuff, but I'm going to show you the back end to eEdge, where they still have some of those campaigns up and running, so that you can, if you've got nothing to work off of, because I don't want to put my own limiting beliefs on people, but would some of you say that if you're getting started on an 8x8 and a 12x12 in your 33 touch, that it's a little daunting to figure out to actually build them? Is that just me, or do you guys feel the same way?
I don't know. Yeah.
Everybody's muted. You're all so quiet today.
Like, for me, it's me learning. I'm really slow at like, I've been working, not to detract from this, but I've been working on the listing presentation not so much because I'm going to be doing that, but because it was part and parcel with my CMA on Trev. And is it Michael? I've said this before. Is it Michael? I get his name wrong, but Volte had said in one of the conversations with Gary that we saw, I don't know, the team meeting. I can't remember. There's just so much that he was using, and he's like 20 minutes, and he had his listing presentation done. And I'm thinking 20 minutes. I'm doing this for days. I'm not that savvy with this stuff until I get there and knowing what I have to put where and taking things out and uploading this or uploading that. But I think once you get that, once you nail that down, it becomes easier and it's repetition.
Absolutely.
And I don't mind doing it, but I find that I'm just such a dinosaur, whereas probably my 5-year-old grandchildren could probably do it with their eyes closed. But
well, so the important thing to note there is that everybody's going to be at different levels in terms of using technology. That'll always be the truth. I mean, I was always thought myself very good technology wise. And then as time's gone on, I feel like I'm a little on a date. Like I'm not up to date with everything that's going on. So it's always that ongoing battle, but it's just committing to it and making sure that we're all there. So the point of that was there is still a back end where you can access some of the old plans, and I'm sure they'll be bringing on new plans where you can have some marketing materials already created for you. What I will say again about these is they're not personalized. Like you can personalize them with your branding, but it's not a personal touch. It's those typical 5 staging tips and home efficiency tips and stuff like that. So building your own from scratch will always do better. In terms of communicating with the database, if there are people that haven't or that have been unresponsive, like after an 8x8, let's say, move them directly into your 12x12. Keep them on that email only path so that you're still staying in touch with them. Reach out to them, phone calls, trying to convert. There are a lot of great agents out there with programs where they will tell you the same thing. Nobody comes off my mailing list until they take themselves off or they die. And so really it's all about just kind of staying in touch and being systematic about it, because you don't know when a deal is going to come back to you. We recently had a guy that we haven't been in touch with since the 90s reach out, and we're going to be doing some business with them. And so you never know when that's going to happen. And yeah, it may be only one deal over that time, but for a new deal coming in right now, that's fantastic. Like sometimes those one-off deals come around right when you want one. So it's always still worth it.
Can I ask a question? It's Svetlana.
Yep.
Before Najim mentioned what some people in his database don't remember who he is and etc. Question is, are you allowed to contact to somebody if you didn't talk to them more than a year?
It's a good question. Off the top of my head, I don't remember all the rules in regards to that. But if I have somebody's contact information and we spoke at one point, I will just call and say, hey, we spoke about this house over here at one point. Or if I can't remember, I'll just be like, I remember we had a great real estate discussion one time. I'm just reaching out because we haven't spoken in a while.
No, it's not that. I have same situation as Najim. People was giving me phone numbers for other business, not for real estate. And I have them in my collection, I believe, in my treasure trunk for many, many years.
Yeah.
Many of them remember me, many no. And when I tried to tell them how I got the number, I remember that lady, she was very interesting, named Santa. So she said, how dare you to call me? I give you my number for completely different business and many years ago. And I was killed by that response.
Well, so at that point, I would approach those calls with a similar mindset of these are cold calls. And not everybody might be happy to hear from me. And at that point, I would just ask for forgiveness. I'd say, I'm sorry to bother you. Was not in my intention. I'm just hoping that we could reconnect. Yeah. And thank you for their time. Say sorry to bother you. And then remove her from your list. We remove people from our database that we have relationships with if it's no longer something that suits, right? So to remove somebody from a call list that's sitting in a book somewhere, no problem, but you don't know until you make those calls. So because you don't know the amount of people in there that might be really excited to hear from you, that liked doing business with you before. And I mean, you could even come from that element and say, I really enjoyed the business that we did together before. I'm now in real estate. I'm hoping that we can work together again sometime. This is what I'm about. This is how I can help, whatever. And if you ever need anything, I'm here. I just kind of come from that place of giving and trying to give them something of value, come from contribution. And hopefully it works out.
I think you can also use reaching out to people through the COVID, like just touching base with people and saying, hey, well, I'm just revisiting some of my contact list and just seeing how people are doing and if they're coping and if I can help in any way. And I also do this, but this is my first reason for reaching out to people. So, you know.
Absolutely. There's been lots of those calls going on. So I think that that's another great approach that you could take.
Yeah.
Again, just think of it as a way of just checking in on people.
Sure. Thank you.
No problem. So in terms of now that we've got our leads coming in and we're adding stuff into our database, it's all about funneling our leads into a single point of entry. So like into Command, you know, funneling everything into Command into one place, assigning them on the plan that works, you know, making sure that it's on our 8x8, or even if you aren't doing, like, I'd recommend you doing 8x8s, but even if you aren't doing that, because not everybody will fit that. Maybe you already have a good relationship with them, and you're adding them from a different source, but you're adding them onto a plan that makes sense. Like maybe it's not an 8x8 plan. Maybe it's like a back-to-back months where they get a phone call from you, but you've got that plan for, you know, the rekindled relationship, let's say, and they get an email from you about what it is that you're doing in your business, but assigning them onto a plan so that they are going to systematically get touched, and your Command is going to remind you. You're going to log in that day and it's going to say call Jeff, and you're like, oh, I totally forgot that I had to call Jeff this month. I'm glad that Command was here to remind me. And again, of course, just adding in our sources so that we know where everything's coming from. This is especially important if you're doing a lot of, say, social media marketing right now where you're running ads. You want to be tracking the ones that are most effective so that that money can then get reinvested to that one spot where you're getting your most return. Don't run ads that aren't working, for example. Of course, tracking your leads and making sure that everybody's properly serviced and converted to clients, but also just tracking them in your business so that you know that you're on track for the business that you want. Like when we break down your business plans for the year, if you know that what your conversion rate is, you need to, and you know that you want to make this much money, that you know that you have to have X amount of appointments, and to get X amount of appointments and X amount of leads. So tracking everything is very important to give you an idea of where you're going to end up for the year so that we're not in June and wondering, you know, what our income will be for the year. Obviously, kind of just what I talked about. I'm jumping ahead of my slides here, but just making sure that you're taking all those steps. In regards to your marketing, obviously having unity in everything. So as we're building our 8x8s, our 12x12s, our newsletters, making sure that it's all cohesive, making sure, one, personal, that it feels like it's coming from you, but also that all your branding's the same so that it's recognizable, and then you stay top of mind in that sense. Like we said, assigning leads to the groups in the database, making sure that they're on their action plans. Assigning leads, like I said, if it's coming from the farm, is it coming from ads? What ads it coming from? Like I would want to get very specific, especially if it's money that I'm spending it on. If it's just cold calls, I know it's cold calls, but I would still track what areas I'm getting the best results from. Like, am I getting a higher response rate from the townhomes, or am I getting them from the $1 million homes? Like, I'm probably going to get a better response rate from the townhomes in terms of my move-up calls, but I would still track that stuff just so that you know. Same with sourcing your leads. So all this stuff, these are all tags, right? You guys remember tags from obviously your Command training, just making sure that everybody's assigned. Our team is nuts on tags. I'll open up my website here for a second and show you some of the tags that we use. But coming over from 8i, we use tags for everything because it was our systematic way of making sure we knew what everybody was getting, what plan they were on, how much they were being touched, when was the last thing that they got. So we have stuff, you know, dating back to like 2006. Is one of the most recent tags that I just saw in my Command here. Pull one up, for example. So tags like 2006, he only got the card. 2009, he got the card in the calendar. 2018, got the Christmas calendars. I have his month moved for his anniversary. Command now lets you put that information in, but in 8i before, we actually had to physically make a tag so that we would search all the tags for everybody that moved in February, so we knew our February calls. They got our calendars. 2014, he got the calendar and CD, Christmas calendar. Year 6 CD, we used to give out Christmas CDs, and then we would transition them over every year to new CDs. But the important thing was we tracked all of this stuff so that we knew who got what and who was missing who we could put on our next plan that maybe hadn't received that yet. So again, sourcing leads and making sure that they're on the plan that you want is very important. Of course, tracking and follow-up. Scheduling your follow-up into your 3 hours of lead gen is okay. Like obviously your goal is to make sure that you're getting your 10 new names to be added to your database, but making sure that you're hitting all your follow-up calls is just as important, because if you're adding people into the database and then you're not touching them again, it's no good. You got to make sure that they're on that follow-up system. And so your follow-up, for example, would be maybe you have them on your 8x8, and then everybody that has that first week that's now scheduled the call, you log in and then boom, there's all your activities that you got to make those calls. So how did everybody feel about the database course? Did they find it useful?
Yes, for sure. It was a great.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
Perfect. Any aha moments? Anything that kind of stood out that you're like, okay, this is something that I want to implement? And like anything specific?
I like your personal newsletter. That was like amazing. Making everything coming from value. That's a good point as well. Like something that they really appreciate, and it's not just business, something personal.
Perfect. Yeah.
And I see like you guys are very organized. You have a lot of touches in different angles and ways. Like, so that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's what we all need to strive for, right? Because there's points where we fall through on that too, but it's just making sure that that's the end goal all the time, right? Like even creating these plans, we're always trying to update them so that it's working the way we want it to. So no better time than to start right now.
Yes.
Was there anything that I didn't touch on that we wanted to address?
Just something came to my mind. I don't know if it's possible. We got great knowledge and training with those sessions.
So ready to be.
Is there any way we can shadow some like leading agents, maybe like one a day, once per blue moon, and see how it's all this knowledge implemented?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. So obviously for shadowing, because there's a lot of agents. I don't know where all that noise is coming from there. I'm going to mute you, Nejum, just for now.
Oh, sorry about that. I thought I was on mute. I'm so sorry.
No worries. No worries. Yeah, we can definitely reach out and ask more agents for shadowing opportunities. But of course, like part of the reason why we do all the training is so that you can learn here and then implement on your own. There are moments like obviously with like offer nights and stuff like that, where having somebody to shadow where it's a little bit more valuable and necessary. Do you see that kind of hands-on? But yeah, it's something that we can talk about. It's just not something that we ever can really guarantee, because that's somebody really donating their time in their peak moments of their business. Like I know we've been reaching out for people at open houses, and I think it's Erica that's been doing a lot of it. It's been great. But a lot of people, like, that's their time to convert. So they're so focused on making sure that their business is going well that they don't want somebody shadowing there.
Yeah, I think we can do it on our own with to ask one of the agents you have a good relationship. I'm sure they wouldn't mind once in a blue moon.
Yeah, that's a great reason to cultivate strong relationships with your colleagues, right? Get a good relationship with somebody that you guys you're aligned and on the same page, and then ask to shadow them during the time.
But otherwise, today's session is fantastic. Thank you, Dylan.
Oh, you're very welcome. I'm glad that you got something out of it. That's what's most
It's always
important.
slightly different. It's always something new.
Yeah, if everybody can teach even the exact same content, and you might hear something different from one person than you would another, and it's always about that one nugget, that one aha that you can take away and implement. And if you can do that, that's what might change your business or be the thing that your business needs to excel just a little bit differently.
Yeah.
So that's great. I'm glad you liked it. Okay, guys. So if that's it, I encourage you to have an amazing day and keep up with all the training. You always get out of it what you put into it. It's all about being as involved as possible and then implementing the stuff that you learn. Without implementation, you're just back at square one. So make sure that you're taking everything you learn from these courses and implementing it into your business.
Thank you.
Yeah, really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank
You're
you.
very welcome, guys.
Okay, Dylan, sounds good. That was excellent.
Thanks.
Dylan.
Sabrina.
Thank you.
Dylan, I thought we were going to maybe be blessed with a photo bomb by Brooke.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I don't know the status of Brooke right now, but I can show you. I can show you a picture. I can show you a picture on
Thought
here.
maybe Jen might just slide by behind you or something with a casual.
Here. There's a-
Oh.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So cute.
Oh. Seriously.
I know, right? Adorable.
Oh my
This is our
gosh.
first play date.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. Maybe maybe another time we'll actually have her here physically, but with her being downstairs, I'm not going to go downstairs right now and see where she's at.
No, no.
Do a nice in-person baby viewing.
That's great. Thank you.
Very welcome. All right, guys, have a great day. And as always, you know, we're all a team here. Sabrina's here for you. I'm here for you. Jen's still here in the background. She's still monitoring everything, just obviously not able to communicate with you directly as frequently. But part of the PC program, we're all here for you guys. So, you know,
Really appreciate it.
take advantage.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
Dylan.
much.
Hi to Jen, please.
I will.
Thank you, Jen.
Bye.
Thanks, Dylan.
Take care, guys. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.